Everybody, this is Perch, and this may be an interesting video to you, or maybe just one of those kind of nonsense ones you scroll past relatively quickly. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, particularly as I feel very thankful. A lot of people have come on the show, talked about their books, and been pretty open. I always expected a lot of people would dodge, coming on the show and being interviewed and being talked to, because that there's this stigma around YouTube, and if you talk negatively about comics, and to be fair, I've talked negatively about plenty of things in comics, just like I've talked about positive things. But generally speaking, a lot of creators tend to shy away from that historically. And so I've been very, very thankful. All the people who have come on and given comments and also kept their word. There's been people who are like, yeah, I'll come on your show later. And then they do. That's always nice. Been a couple flakes in the whole thing. But, again, everybody's got to look out for their career. And one of the things on this show, and I tell people this before I interview them, and it's something I try and live up to. The last thing I want is for somebody to get in trouble. I don't want somebody to do an interview with me and then get like the hey, what was that, what were you doing there kind of comments. I don't want anybody to have to deal with that stuff, and so I work pretty hard. Like I steer away from some gotcha things that I'm sure people they'd be entertained to listen to, but it's just, I think somebody's showing me the respect to come on and give me their time. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing at least my part back. You can't protect from crazies. I'm sure there's going to be some concerned trolling at some point, like, hey, did you know that guy has, there's going to be something like that at some point, but thankfully we've kind of avoided it. But it's raised a curious question at times, because there are people who I think are quite good people that I get along with, and people I've had a drink with, people I've had really great chats with behind the scenes, or wherever it happens to be. It's not really behind the scenes, just had good chats with. And then they put out a comic, and it's like, I don't like this comic. And it is surprisingly tough, I think, in this comics field, in the creator field, to tell people you don't like something. People need you to like it. And I think, and part of it, this is just my guess, but part of it is that there's so much shallow praise that goes on in comics. Somebody puts out something, it's like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever, chef's kiss, amazing. And it's all very phony. I have to believe that the person hearing that is aware that it's not the most amazing thing in the entire world. I mean, I'll use this as an example. And, Vita Ayala does this one issue of Marauders. Okay, it's one issue of Marauders, and it's I think it was the first issue where Marauders tied into Ten of Swords. And the basic premise of the comic is Storm goes to get a knife/sword from Wakanda, and she meets up with Shuri, and she has a chat and some dinner, and then she sneaks in and she gets a sword, and she steals it, and then, she fights Shuri and beats her, and then Black Panther lets her go. And the story was not like this wasn't a god awful worst story you ever had in your life. If you look at all the Ten of Swords comics, I don't know, maybe it's in the top half of the Ten of Swords comics, maybe, I don't know, but the whole event was kind of, for me at least, down. But I think that if you're objective, your general review of this comic would be middle of the road. Well, it wasn't awful, wasn't good. And yet there were people who responded and promoted that thing as like, this is the best Storm comic in 20 years. This is the Storm comic we've been waiting for forever. And it's like, again, maybe that's true. Maybe there's some people who actually feel that way, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. With, best Storm comic ever. I mean, again, this is a comic that was tying into an event. It was like chapter 5 or whatever of an event. Like, you got to be kidding me. It's not. This isn't the most amazing thing in the world. And the Storm stuff was pretty by the numbers. Now, I don't think, and if I was talking to Vita Ayala, I would say, yeah, it was fine. I mean, it was a story. But so many people, I think largely because they wanted to support Vita, were going on and on and on about how this is the best Storm story in the history of the entire universe, and it's wonderful, and it was like, oh my God, chef's kiss. 3 chef's kisses all in a row. Just a big sloppy chef's kiss. And I don't know what good that does. So I have a hard time believing that Vita is like, all right, yeah, I've peaked. This is the best story I've ever written. I mean, I think I've got to believe that, I have no idea, but I have a hard time Vita's buying that is all legitimate praise. Um, I don't, but imagine if she was like, oh my God, I'm the best comic writer in the history of the world. See, everybody loves this comic. Does that do any favors for Vita to say this one issue, this one kind of almost fill-in issue of Marauders that is a tie-in to an event where a character gets restored and there's not really a lot of character development? That this is the pinnacle of comics for 2 decades? That doesn't help anybody. Like, this is not going to help B to be a better writer, or even if you buy into the idea that it's the greatest comic ever, continue to be a great writer, whatever it happens to be. So it feels like a lot of very, very faint praise. It feels like a lot of just superficial things. Like, I want to support Vita, therefore the only way I know how to do it is by completely going over the top with how amazing this comic is, to the point of absurdity of talking about how it's the best comic ever written. Yes, chapter 6 of Ten of Swords is the best comic ever written. I just I that seems ridiculous, but I think it does set up the scenario that if you say, well, I didn't really enjoy this comic, when people are being told that their first issue kind of fill-in event crossover is the greatest story ever told in the history of comics. By contrast, if you say, I didn't really care for this comic, that's got to feel like devastating criticism. Like somebody just told you that you're ugly and should be put to death. I mean, if that's the scale we're now using, that's how people are going to receive that criticism. And so people ask me, all the time, hey, what did you think of this book? And it's like, it's all right. I mean, the funny thing is, if you've read, say, 10,000 comics, I don't know if that's how many comics I've read, but I'm sure it's probably close to that number. I don't know. I have no idea. I've read, I mean, it's got to be very, very high. Most comics I read are going to be middle of the road. That's the nature of comics. That's when you've read all these books, that's how it all comes out. I don't try and sit here and wallow in it like, if only every comic was Zot. I enjoyed Zot. I don't know, the best comic ever made, but I really enjoyed Zot. At any rate, sorry, there we go again. It is very, very hard, and it's getting harder to give people honest feedback. And it's like a lot of people in comics are just no longer equipped to deal with faint criticism. I'm not talking talking about trolling and slamming and going to the opposite degree of saying how much somebody's writing sucks. It's just like, we're stuck in this middle ground now where everybody in the industry is kind of scared to tell each other, I don't know, it didn't really work for me. It's not that great. It's got to be, this is the greatest thing I've ever read. It's always the greatest thing I've ever read. And this is not uncommon. I mean, you see this, I think, in music, you see it in film, you see it in other things. I mean, there's a cliche about the filmmaker that makes some boring movie that, invites their friends over to see it. The friends are like, oh my God, it's an Oscar winner. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. My God. And they leave and they're like, oh, Jesus, that was, I had to keep jamming a fork into my leg to stay awake because this thing was so terrible. All this, the entertainment business, you could argue, is a very shallow industry, just in general. But it is, I will say this. There's two things that I do when I interview or I talk to people. I've never lied to anybody. I've never told anybody, oh my God, this is you are the best writer, or the best artist, or whatever it is. I've never done that. For example, if you're listening to this and I've interviewed you, and I've said, hey, I really like your book, then you're hearing the truth. I really liked it. You probably have not heard me say to anyone, hey, this is the greatest comic ever written in the world. You have done it. Drop the mic. It's all over now. I haven't said anything because it hasn't been true. I don't know what the best comic I've ever read is, but it's not one I've read in the last year. I'll put it that way, and that's okay. again, I get entertained by a lot of stuff. And I think there's a lot of good work out there, but I don't think there's anything healthy about perpetuating this. I think all it's doing is kind of teaching people not to take any criticism. Um, but the other thing that I do, and it's kind of related to this, is and it's funny because I didn't notice this until recently when I did an interview, and I asked a question I don't normally ask. I asked a question about an upcoming title, and I typically never do that in interviews because that's not this show. I'm not digging for rumors. I'm not like, hey, you got some dirt on Jeff Johns? Yeah, what is he like in the shower? I actually, that would be a weird question. I should ask that to somebody. I've always wanted, by the way, when I do these interviews with people, to like lead off with a some super insane Alex Jones level conspiracy thing right out the gate, like tell me about this. And I've never I've never been able to. I always chicken out every time because I always think my sarcasm tends to be very very dry, and I always think like the person I'm talking to is not going to get it, and it's going to just be this horrible moment. I'm going to be apologizing forever. But I don't ask like, hey, can you tell me a secret of something that's coming up in the book? Like I'll tell you right now, I am very 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 curious as to what the plot is for the upcoming the volume 3 of White Knight. I'm curious who's in it, where's it going, all the rest. I will tell you, you've heard the interviews. I've talked to Sean Murphy a few times now. I've never asked him, and won't. It's not the door I want to open. But anyway, I've gone kind of off topic. The key here is that I think that there's something that is unhealthy in comics, in the sense that we by going over the top with praise, we've eliminated the ability to say, yeah, it's just okay. And I think sometimes artists and creators and people, they need to hear, this is just okay. I think that, you're living on a pack of lies. I think that constantly being in this space where everything is just very, 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 very positive and therefore very, very shallow. It's not where I want to live. Now, again, I don't know if other people feel the way I do, but I have this natural built-in reaction that if somebody's telling me that they love something that I did, that they're lying. There's no way that's true. I deal with negativity way better than positivity. Like I've said before, I don't take compliments well. Who was I talking? I was talking to which artist? There's some artist I was talking to, and he and I both were like, yeah, we neither one of us take compliments well, and it was very like I was a big fan of his, and he liked some of the things I do, and both of us are like, don't compliment me, no, you don't compliment me, and it was a funny moment. I wish that would have been on tape. It would have been all the awkwardness that you come to love and enjoy from this show. Anyway, truth is better than lies, and I think that sometimes it's okay to say I didn't really care for that, and it can't mean the end of the world. And maybe if we said that a little bit more often, it wouldn't be the end of the world, and then life would be better. I don't know, just a crazy idea on a crazy topic. I said this was a weird topic, so hey, if you stuck with me to this point, Baba Booey, thanks for listening. Take it easy.